Welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Swale. Today, I'm joined with John Wallace. He's a Houston mud attorney since 1984. John, how are you?
Good morning, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's a pleasure. It's always, I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's always fun to talk to people like you who are involved in sort of stuff that don't necessarily get a lot of public play in local, state, or national news. And so, we'll be talking about MUDs and, what those are, the public facility corporations, PFCs, and all sorts of stuff. But just, it's always good to start with a brief introduction. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Native Houstonian and started practicing law in 1984, and I've been in the mud industry my whole career. I'm mostly representing water districts that are controlled by residents. So normally when a district gets started, the board is an appointed board in the early stages of development, and eventually it transitions to a resident-controlled board. So it's, in my view, sort of the essence of local government. It's a governmental entity. It exists under state law and operates under the water code, and is regulated by the TCEQ, which is the state agency charged with regulating mud districts, mostly the financial aspects. Issuance of bonds and approval of projects.
So a MUD, Municipal Utility District, correct?
Correct.
And so, I mean, I don't know, I think people may have heard of MUDs and maybe they live in a MUD and they're aware of it, but how does a MUD get started? How does that happen?
Well, it's created at the direction of a real estate developer who wants to build a subdivision.
Okay.
There's no utilities in place, and so water, sewer, and drainage systems have to be constructed. But that's all done at the risk of the developer. And the MUD is created either legislatively or through petition to the TCEQ, two ways to do it. They're mostly legislatively created now. There's a public election then to confirm the creation of the district and to vote bonds. And then the developer enters into an agreement with the MUD to construct all of these public facilities at his expense, and then to get reimbursed at the time that there's enough development out in the district and the geographic boundaries of the district to provide the tax base to support the bonds.
Yep.
So the district then comes in behind once all of the stuff is constructed and approved and in place, and then starts issuing series of bonds to reimburse the developer. So most of the clients that I have are very mature districts. They're 30, 40, even 50 years old. The developers are long gone, and so whatever development occurs is usually smaller scale, 50-acre subdivision or a 30-acre subdivision or a commercial center. But it's done under the same recipe, that there's an agreement entered into between the developer and the MUD that if you build it, you build some public facilities, you convey them over to the district, and eventually, once this is all completed and we can check all the boxes, the district will issue some bonds and reimburse them.
Yeah.
It's all done under the regulatory authority of the TCEQ. So it's highly regulated, highly scrutinized.
So what is it sounds like, a MUD is certainly different than a town or a city, right? But they can exist, I presume, within a city. Are they under the jurisdiction of a city or town, whatever?
Good question. They are typically in the ETJ of a city, extraterritorial jurisdiction. There's a Municipal Annexation Act that provides that for large cities, it all depends on the population, but the largest ETJ that the largest cities can have is 5 miles. So you have a corporate limit to the city plus an additional 5 miles until you bump into somebody else's city limits or somebody else's ETJ.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So districts in and around Houston area are primarily in the ETJ, the city of Houston. So they exercise some control over the issuance of bonds. The city wants to approve all plans for public utilities because one day the city may annex those entities and take over their water and sewer systems.
Yeah.
So the ETJ is an important concept, but there are in the city of Houston, city of Pearland, city of Missouri City, city of Conroe, there are in-city MUDs that are done specifically pursuant. There's a development agreement that's done between the entity and the city that allows the creation of this MUD, and it basically creates an area where there's an additional MUD tax, but just for that area.
Yeah.
So the city gets its tax, plus there's a MUD tax on top of it. It's an overlapping tax,
Yeah. Well,
generally.
certainly, yeah, they're going to get their money one way or the other, right? So let's talk about the public facility corporations, the PFCs. And this is something that I only learned about somewhat recently. I don't know how old is the concept of PFCs? Do you know?
I think the original statute, which is Local Government Code 303, was about 2015. I may be wrong, but in about 2020, it came to public light. University of Texas published, I guess, what I would call a white paper on the subject of public facility corporations, and really said that this had become the darling of the real estate multifamily industry because they could get a deal financed privately. This is not using public bond money or any public money, but the financing is coming from a private source, but they run the title of the property through a PFC, and and then the property is then leased back to the developer, the private developer, to manage and operate and make a profit on. And they have to provide a concession of reduced rents for 51% of their rent roll.
Okay.
So that creates what is termed affordable housing. And so the city that is our county that's sponsoring the housing authority is keen on getting these deals done because they're able to provide apartment units at controlled rent, I guess is one way to put it. But it fits the affordable housing model, and bingo, you get a 100% forever tax exemption from ad valorem taxes. So
100% for
100%. So no county taxes, no port authority, no school district, and no MUD taxes.
okay.
So for a deal done in the city of Houston, they're sacrificing their city of Houston tax in order to promote affordable housing. That's their call and their deal. But what's going on is that the housing authority in Houston is doing deals in the ETJ, which they're authorized by statute to do, but the burden falls on MUD districts, not the city.
Yeah.
And so, cities got, I don't even know how big their tax base is, but billions of dollars of tax base. They come out and do a $40 million apartment complex in a $200 million MUD. You've just wiped out 20% of the tax base.
Yeah.
With no notice and no opportunity to set different rates or set different tax rates. It just subverts the whole process.
How are they determining so you said that they have to provide 51% of the units or more have to be quote unquote affordable housing. And is that based on the local area, uh, I guess, median income, like a certain percentage
Pretty
of?
much universal criteria, and it's prescribed in the statute.
Okay.
In other words, you have to have at least 51% of your roll designated as affordable housing units. I can't tell you exactly how that works, but I do know that what everybody has told me over the last couple of years is that the concession is not very significant, and I'm just an example of an apartment complex that went tax exempt in one of my districts. They got a $900,000 total annual tax concession. I don't think the rent roll that was sacrificed to achieve that was anywhere near that number.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
so I, so this is the balance that, is the public getting a good value for the loss of tax base? Because it affects school districts have no recourse, county has no recourse, fire districts have no recourse, but mud districts do because we have the ability to charge higher rates um, to tax exempt entities.
okay.
We so
So what is it? So I mean, I guess the reason why I ask about the number there, the affordability, like how do they define affordability? I don't know if it's just, and so I live in Austin, and a lot of affordability projects, affordable housing projects in Austin, it's
yeah,
based on the local area median
there
income and stuff
there are
like
many. I couldn't give you a dissertation
that.
on
Sure.
all the different programs that are available. There's vouchers, there's federal money, there's state money. There's a lot of different programs out there to provide affordable housing. This is just the Public Facility Corporation version um, under Chapter 303.
Yeah. So so I mean, you're talking about in some cases, right? I'm sure it obviously varies from case to case, but in some cases they're wiping out 20% of of the tax rolls in a mud district, correct? And I mean, that's a huge portion. I can only imagine the uproar if, I don't know, Houston or Dallas or
Well,
Austin or whatever, if they lost
the burden's
20%.
got to be shifted somewhere because
Sure.
it's kind of a zero sum game. You've got to pay your bonds through ad valorem taxes, and you got to run your water and sewer system. You just can't take a 20% hit, um, and it's a material event to your financial status.
Yeah.
It could affect your bond rating. It could affect your ability to sell bonds in the future. Um, and if the burden has to be made up by other ratepayers, typically homeowners, it's very inequitable.
Yeah, for sure. So is it only for new builds, new properties, or could a developer purchase a property in a mud district and then pass it through a PFC and then take that? How does that work? Does it
It's
have to be a new
both.
development? It's both.
It's
Okay.
absolutely both. They do them both ways. So
Okay.
new deals, it's a little easier for a mud to get in front of it if we're diligent about monitoring what's going on at the housing authority. We can find deals that are seeking to go tax exempt and try to forestall that, which we've done successfully a couple of times. Or you get a notice 5 months after it happened that it's tax exempt, because there is nothing in the statute that requires any notice. In the appraisal district, when they grant the full exemption, they don't provide notice. Um, so you just sort of sitting there with your hands in your pockets.
I mean, I hate to sort of laugh at it, but it's the way that you're describing it sounds almost, I mean, it's sort of absurd. I don't know how else to respond to it. It seems like everything is being done under the cover of night, and it's done at the expense of, I mean, potentially thousands of other residents, right?
Yes, yes. You've got it. Well, let me walk it forward a little bit. So
Sure.
we've got all these deals that sort of exploded onto the stage, and kind of starting in 2021 and 2022, and then Senator Betancourt sort of led the charge. He had tried to get something done in the 2021 session, but in the 2023 session, he's the chairman of the I guess state and local government committee of the Senate,
Yep.
introduced a couple of bills. One was to repeal Chapter 303 and do away with public facility corporations. And then he had another bill to significantly reform it.
Okay.
So some other bills got filed in the House of Representatives, and the one that everybody got behind was House Bill 2071. And that's the bill that ultimately got passed by both houses with super majorities to where it became effective in June of 2023 without the governor's signature. So the governor didn't need to sign it, and
Okay.
that was probably important, but I can only speculate as to why. So the reforms were principally notice to affected jurisdictions. And in the case of school districts and the county, they had to specifically consent to the transaction. But in the case of special purpose districts, i.e. MUDs, you had to enter into what's called a pilot agreement. Pilot is an acronym, stands for payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
So instead of just saying the districts can opt out and they can continue to charge taxes, you have to then collect your taxes through a contract with the developer.
Okay.
So there's room for some negotiation. Would the district take 80% of their taxes? Would they take 40% of their taxes? Whatever. And if the district didn't agree, they could presumably stop the transaction.
Okay.
The other significant reform was there were some auditing and accounting requirements that they had to perform a public audit and provide it to all the entities. And if they didn't, and there was a certification process, and this was required year to year. And if they didn't achieve that, they would lose their tax exemption.
Okay.
So effectively, Chapter 303 is no longer the desired modality to get these deals done. They have moved over to something else.
Okay.
There was a quite a long hiatus while they sat and figured it out, but now they're doing deals under Chapter 392 and 394 of the Local Government Code, and these provisions are simply the general authorization for a city-sponsored housing authority and a county-sponsored housing authority. So
Okay.
cities are 392, counties are 394, and they're just using this general authority to create affordable housing. And then they have created a much more complicated shell game with the title transfer in order to what they think secures them a tax exemption under the state constitution.
Okay.
And the property tax code. So they go to the chief appraiser. Here's all our paperwork. Please review it. And the chief appraisers are granting the exemptions. Again, same deal. No notice to the entities, and they have slowed down somewhat, but they're still doing deals under this. They basically have bypassed House Bill 2071 and all the reforms to Chapter 303. They're just completely ignoring that part of the law and picking another horse to ride.
Yeah. I mean, it almost seems like, I don't know, these mud districts are pretty small. And if they, I understand that, based on what you said, Senator Betancourt tried to sort of, make these reforms happen. But of course, the developers and lawyers and everybody, they figured out a way to sort of get around it, as you described. And that's, I guess what they do, and that's fine. That's part of the system, and that's a different conversation. But, I don't, if the mud doesn't, we live in a state where property taxes are how everything operates. That's the main source of funding, right? So if they if they can just go in and build something that maybe the mud doesn't even want within their boundaries, and then also take away the taxes, it seems like it's really shady, and it's really surprising that this is happening, that it's somehow constitutional. And again, I don't know, you're a lawyer and I'm not, you'd probably understand that better than me, but it just sort of blows me away.
Well, then let's move into discussion about the City of Plano case,
Okay.
which was filed just a couple of months ago. I had a client that was looking at filing a constitutional challenge, but for a small mud district that has a limited budget, you don't have enough wherewithal to pay a team of litigators to make a constitutional challenge and take it all the way through appeals in order to get it to the state Supreme Court to get some finality on the judgment.
Yeah.
So very daunting. So fortunately, the city of Plano has stepped in and challenge the constitutionality of it's mainly directed at Chapter 303, all of the deals that got grandfathered that were done before the reform bill was passed in 2023. There's many on the books, and
Yeah.
uh, I can't even begin to tell you how many cases or what the impact to various tax rolls
Sure.
were. But they raise about 10 different constitutional arguments in this petition, and I think it's got a lot of merit. And I hope that they're able to litigate it successfully and get some law on the books that may undo the damage that's been done under 303.
So if they were to win in that on the constitutionality grounds of it, like what would be the aftermath? Would they no longer are grandfathered in and they would have to start paying property taxes and then I guess maybe raise rents or whatever they need to do? Is that how it would work, or would they?
There's provisions. This is kind of getting into some speculation on my part, but I
Sure.
have read the documents as to how one of these deals is set up. There are provisions in the documents that talk about what happens if you lose the tax exemption,
Yeah.
and it basically the transaction unwinds. Um, and then I guess the real underlying issue is what does the lender do in that case, because they've underwritten the loan, and again it's a private loan. Um, they've underwritten the loan as if you had about $1 million tax concession, and so the numbers change.
Yeah.
And so you're in a market where interest rates are fairly high, which is why these tax exempt deals are so attractive to multifamily developers. Um, you change the math that radically, and they're going to need to refinance their loan.
Yeah.
So, but I
Sure.
don't view that as a real impossibility. It's going to disrupt the market, and lawyers that practice in the multifamily finance area are going to get to refinance all of these deals. So
Yeah.
I'm not losing any sleep for those guys.
No, they'll get there.
Make
Yeah.
money coming and going. So
Yes, they will for sure. So, um, it's so I guess the idea, right, is that they set this up so that, building affordable housing would be more appealing to developers. And, is that a noble goal or not is a different discussion altogether. Should they be whatever? That was
I can't. I think it's noble enough. But if you're creating a concession of upwards of $1 million a year in tax revenues, and the developer is giving up 200 or $250,000 on the rent roll, and sticking the rest in their pocket, that's not good business for the
yeah.
state. I think everybody kind of gets that.
Yeah, for sure. Is there, I mean, are you aware of any sort of like, I don't know, any instances where this was a positive, like it was a positive thing? It worked out well, like it worked out as intended, I suppose.
I think, again, just speculating here. If the problem is that dire and there's not enough housing for people to live, I think there's a social need to have people that live inside the city.
Sure.
So if that's what you're trying to attract, and you're trying to keep the Class A apartment market from going so far away from normal people, people of medium incomes,
Sure.
um, and those people, your teachers and your policemen and your firefighters, and that group of people can't afford to live near the places where they work, and you impose an hour and a half commute on them because they have to live out in um, way outside the city.
Yeah.
Then I think there's some social benefit to that, obviously,
Sure.
but um, there's got to be a better way to do it to where you don't ride the backs of other people. Um, Particularly in the mud situation, where all the revenue loss has to be made up. There's no other way to do it. You've got to raise rates on other people in order to close the gap.
Yeah, for sure.
But for the city, maybe it's more of a rounding error on their books. But in a small political subdivision like a MUD, it's 20% of your tax. I've got a MUD with 55% of their tax base is multifamily, and we're at risk. There's
Yeah.
there's a palpable, definable risk to that MUD, and it would go bankrupt if all the apartments in that deal went tax exempt, and there's not much to stop them.
Yeah. So, can I start a PFC? Like, can anybody do this? Or is it only
Any political subdivision can start a PFC.
okay,
So it's kind of I don't get very far thinking about it, but a MUD could start a PFC.
sure. Okay.
Can't figure out why they would do that, but they're mostly started by housing authorities.
Okay.
And in the city of Plano case, there's 4 or 5 defendants that are public facility corporations who are all created by the same entity.
Okay.
Is they're suing their own housing authority to get this constitutional judgment.
So the city of Plano is suing the city of Plano Housing Authority,
Yeah.
the housing authority that they created.
And the PFCs that they created under the housing authority.
That seems there's like a little civil war going on there. So is there limits to like the geographic boundaries? Like if the city of Austin, where I live, if I don't know, the city of Austin Housing Authority started a PFC, do they have to operate only within the city of Austin boundaries, or can they operate anywhere in Texas?
Really good question. One of the things that Senator Betancourt took special note of in the committee hearings was a management district that had been created by a Dallas law firm who is very much involved in the PFC affordable housing business.
Yeah.
They basically created and controlled their own entity and did deals all over the state. There was no geographic limitation. So they used one entity to pursue all their transactions. And they would just funnel them through this management district in Central Texas. It's just do a Google search and you can read all about it. There were many articles written on this management district.
Well, I guess if the house, so I'll just use the Plano, city of Plano as an example. Their housing authority, I presume, is, they're tasked with creating affordable housing or whatever within the city of Plano. Um, I presume that the Dallas situation is similar. Why would what do they have to gain by doing this all over the state of Texas if it doesn't actually help their mission? I guess if they own the
Oh,
property,
I don't, I think that all the Plano deals were done in city of Plano,
yeah,
and
right.
that's what they're complaining about. But I'm telling you, this entity in Central Texas did deals all over the state.
Oh, okay. I guess they just make a lot of money off of it.
Yeah, it was just their pet client and a conduit for doing their deals.
okay. Well, that's interesting. Oh God. So the 89th the 89th ledge, we'll call it, is coming up starting early next year. I'm assuming that, Senator Betancourt and people, legislators like him are aware of this. Are you aware of anything that they're looking at as far as this, correcting this? What do
I
you
do
hope to see?
know I have been in contact with a couple of legislators, chiefs of staff,
Okay.
and worked through the problem as it relates to mud districts and the
Yep.
mud industry. I don't have any specific legislation. I've got a couple of ideas, but it's kind of gets into the weeds of what mud districts are faced with.
Sure.
Um, and as far as reforms that they can do, I think they need to look at 392 and 394 and provide some guardrails. I don't think you're going to, and I'm not a politician, so I don't know what the political tea leaves are, but I don't think you're going to just end the program. I
Yeah.
think the program's got to persist, but it's got to be reformed in significant ways.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it.
I mean, I just think that's logical. I'm not a lobbyist, and uh, I don't intend to run for office. So,
Sure. Yeah. And, I mean, housing is
please
such a, I
go.
mean, again, and I'll use Austin as an example because that's where I live, but I think it's the same in every big city in Texas. We keep hearing about affordability crisis, affordability crisis, affordability crisis, and we need to change the land use code and we need to build more housing and all this other stuff. And, this seems like something that if it's not changed can certainly be abused by, and obviously in your experience, MUDs are getting shafted on this. And if cities sort of if something doesn't change, put up those guardrails like you're talking about, then it could really, I don't know, seem like it could really harm more than, I mean, cities as well, like the city of Plano or Austin or Dallas or whatever. Do they have more resources to stop
Yeah,
it, do you think? Or
it's, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of issues that are sort of above my pay grade. I'm not an urban planner either. But as I was alluding to earlier, yeah, I think there's some social benefit to having a city within its city limits to
yeah,
have and attract people who can afford to live there.
yeah,
You look at a town like Aspen, and nobody can live in Aspen except the uber wealthy.
sure,
And there's other towns around that are very much like that. Um, so you can drive through West Texas, and I don't know the reason for it, but you see one town that's got everything going on. It's the center of activity. It's got Walmarts, Home Depots, Chick-fil-A's, on and on and on. You drive through the next three towns, and they're complete ghost towns.
yeah,
So there's a difference in a successful city and an unsuccessful city.
yeah,
Um, so it doesn't take much observation to figure that out, what to do about it. Yeah, I think that having people live in your city that provide that, I'm just broad brush and call it the middle class,
sure,
that can afford to live in the city and provide services, et cetera, where you've got a going economy. That's sort of the key to the health of a city.
yeah,
But you've got loads of examples where people have just moved out, and
yeah.
then it's just a complete ghost town. They're all over the place.
Yeah, and how you go about it, I guess, is that's the real question. And it seems like what we've been talking about the PFCs is that there's a lot of downsides to that. Well, John Wallace, I really appreciate you taking the time. Do you have, I don't know, a website or social media that you would like people to find you at?
I'm
You
I'm
don't, that's
findable.
okay.
Within the mud industry, I'm very findable. We do have a website. It's just the name of my firm, which is Bacon, Wallace, and Philbin.
Okay.
Get that out there. But thank you for the time. I've enjoyed the conversation. Very, very insightful and really good questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. We'll talk again.
Thank you.